Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zigzag Leap. We are in our Balance Your Business interview series where I am talking to business owners about how to balance your business, how to build a business and a life without sacrificing mind, body, or profit. So today I am talking to Stephanie Ressler, who is a mindset coach. I know you work with people in different areas from spiritual to somatic, psychological, all the things. So can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got here?
Sure. Well, I am a former, so I'm a trained, I have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And when I finished that, I decided that I wanted to travel the world. That was my priority in life. And so
Mhm.
I kind of like wiggled my way into the international school scene and was
Nice.
sort of decided to work in the school system and do social emotional counseling. So I did that for about 8 years and recently made my own life leap and left. I had been in China for the last 4.5 years and made my life leap into kind of transitioning onto the online space and trying to create, use my skill set to be remote and allow myself like life and flexibility and
Right.
the ability to kind of continue to travel and do the things I want while also pursuing my passions.
Okay, so now I have to know because you've been all over these zigzags. So, how did you get from mental health and clinical psychology to money mindset?
Well, I mean, I think it's just kind of it's part of the personal process for me. I think I'm a type of person who is constantly engaged in my own inner work. And so
Mhm.
I'm constantly learning and taking courses. And I just find it very interesting to self reflect. And in the process of learning how to transition from being in the sort of structured work environment where I just have to show up and then they pay me,
Mhm.
of course, had to take a lot of courses on learning how to be online, how to run your own business, how to understand the finances of everything. And in the throes of that, along with my own spiritual journey, I came into contact with how money is part of your internal working model of the world, how your relationship with money is reflected in your programming growing up, and just sort of like a lot of, for me, money is attached to a lot of depth work. So I don't know, it's just kind of been a natural progression in terms of my own experience coming into the business side of things, but
Mhm.
also connected to my own interest in self-reflection and shadow work and all of that stuff. So to me, it's a really neat connection, actually.
Yeah. So when you came into the business area and you were, building your own, I have found that a lot of people get stuck in those money patterns, like you said, from when we were growing up, and you don't realize how much it holds you back. Is there something in particular that you have found in your journey or working with your clients that is like an obvious hang up? If you're feeling this, then this would be.
Hmm. Let me think about that for a second. Well, I mean, I think I'm not sure. There's nothing that's coming up for me that's super obvious because I do think it depends on the person.
Mhm.
But I think that you can not without too much difficulty, you can tune in once you start to pay attention to how you feel about money. And it's been interesting because there's been a connection between attachment theory, like sort of, well, number one, energetically, people talk about how energy and love are sort of, they're the same frequency. So a lot of times, how you experience love is also going to be similar to how you experience your relationship with money.
That
So
makes
you can
sense.
have sort of a, um, interesting relationship with receiving money. So maybe you feel uncomfortable receiving it, you reject it, you kind of push it away. You can have some challenges with keeping money. Um, you know, once it's around you, you kind of want to get rid of it. So maybe you receive it, but when you have too much, it makes your nervous system go kind of crazy, and you want to get rid of it. You can have difficulty giving it away. Once it's there, you feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, I don't want to lose it. I'm never going to get it back, and so you kind of can
Mhm.
be grippy about it. So I think there's a lot that people can sort of start to explore when they think about how they feel about money. How generous do you feel? How willing are you to receive money? Are you, I don't know. So there's these interesting like internal things that really don't take that much reflection. But if you're not sure about how you feel about it with money, you can look at your relationship patterns, and sort of consider how they might be connected. Like, do I believe that love is freely available to me? Do I feel like once I get it, I have to hold on to it so much because I can't let it go because it will never come back to me? Do I feel
Right.
like, no, I'd rather just not even be in relationship because I don't trust, that when it's
Mm-hmm.
around me. So it's really interesting. I think, yeah.
Right. How has this part of it impacted your life? The money mindset, how has that shifted and impacted the way you do business?
Oh my gosh. It comes up for me literally all the time in
Yeah.
every way. It's about making decisions in my business, how
Mhm.
I'm willing to invest in myself. Do I feel worthy of, well, okay, so for example, I when I left China, I, of course, left all of my security. I decided I was going to, leave behind my
Right.
salary and everything that made me feel like I could, do things and feel good and safe in the world, and say, okay, I have no idea what's coming, but I'm going to take a risk. And I had, of course, saved a lot of money. And when I got back to the US, I wasn't ready to start my business. I wasn't ready to kind of put myself out there. I felt very much like I was burnt out and I needed to take some time to really take care of myself. And so I decided to travel. And I went to Guatemala. I did a yoga teacher training. And then I was like, well, I'm remote. I don't have to go back. I don't know what I'm doing. Why don't I just have a
Mhm.
bit of an adventure? And so I went to Mexico and I went to Bali. And of course, doing that and not having a secure job and not having stable income is terrifying for
Yeah.
the nervous system. And I really had to do, I mean, that was kind of where I had to really start doing the work, was, rethinking and reframing my relationship with how I spend money, my relationship with how free flowing money can be. And I remember in one particular instance, feeling really hard on myself and being like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
all you're doing is just, you're wasting all of your life savings. It was like, well, no, I'm investing in myself. I'm investing in my well-being. I'm investing in my mental health. I'm investing in, making sure to fill my own cup so that when I'm actually working with clients, I'm working from overflow.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it was like, no, I had to change my understanding of what it meant to invest and that I'm also worthy of investing in. So no, I wasn't just wasting my money. I was making the best investment that I possibly could. Did that
Right.
mean that my bank account number went down? Yes. But does it mean that that number is the only number that's ever going to be there again and that there won't be more coming and going?
Mhm.
So it's like it's moments like that that have really impacted me and kind of had me coming face to face with really looking at how I feel, how my nervous system feels in relationship to money, and I think that that changes everything. So it's a lot for business. I think it's a lot. It's how you spend money and how you think about, am I a successful business person who invests money in things that I think are important? Or am I the kind of person that doesn't really think that I have access to things? And so I'm going to like save it and kind of stay small and be a little bit, worried. I think there's also an energy for me. There's an energy in how you approach money,
Mhm.
how you live with money, how you relate to it. And I
That
think that that bleeds into how you show up online, how your business functions, how much people feel that they can invest in you. If I'm willing to
right.
invest in myself, then I can clearly say it's safe to invest with me. If I am not willing to invest in myself, how can I expect other people to invest in me and think that I'm going to be offering or delivering a service or product that's actually going
Right.
to be valuable? So,
So good. So true. Um, in all of that, you were mentioning, how you had these fears of spending the money and, going out and I guess you could say doing the irresponsible thing based on everything that we've been taught. But I love the fact that you didn't fall into that trap, that you had your own mind, that you defined what investment and what success was going to look like for you. And so it's kind of like you change the definition of permission that we're taught in school. Like somebody else has to give you consent. So I have to ask, what is your definition of permission?
yeah, it's such a good question. I really like that question. I think I'm probably somebody who overcomplicates all of these things, but my feeling is that permission is um, uh, it's connected to a feeling of that it's safe to proceed. And I'm even when I say that, I'm a little bit like, I don't know if that's true because I don't necessarily know that you always feel safe when you have permission, when you give yourself permission.
Right.
But you're sort of looking for safety, or at least you're being mindful of where, if it's unsafe, where is that coming from? So to me, permission is I'm going to choose it because it's in alignment for who I am. And I'm going to trust that when I'm in alignment, when I'm doing things that are connected to my soul purpose, my actual, like, not just my ego, not what I think I'm supposed to do, not because I'm scared,
Right.
but because I really feel empowered that this is what's for me, then it's kind of that there's a sense of safety that it's okay to proceed, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it
Even if
does.
it's scary, even if you're pushing yourself and there's a little bit of fear there, but the deep down, you're like, no. And I think that that's what I did. I gave myself permission to be a little bit uncomfortable and to be a little bit afraid, but also knowing that this is what I truly want. So there was a sense of like, okay, this is scary, but I'm doing it anyway.
Right.
And I gave myself permission to proceed.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so when you're working with your clients, how do you help them start to change their um, the relationship, understanding of the relationship that they have with money? How do you help them reframe that and then proceed so that it helps them align with who they were created to be?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, I think it's always frustrating for people because they want the answers right away and they want to shift it
Mhm.
because we all want more money. So
Right.
it's like, you're like, okay, just tell me how. But really, it starts with the very simple and slow process of starting to become aware of what already is living inside of you. And a lot of times that means looking back at your history, looking back at what the things were that you picked up on. So in terms of, working on the subconscious level, you're paying attention particularly to the ages of 0 to 7 and really starting to tune in. Okay, so first of all, what did I understand about money? And this again goes for love as well. What did I pick up on? So if you're from ages 0 to 7, you're basically a walking sponge. You're just picking up the information from the environment around you, and you don't have the developmental capacity to kind of be like, does this make sense? Oh, how do I feel about this? It just is. The world
Right.
looks and feels the way that it does. So, whatever your environment was, makes a huge impact on how that blueprint is going to function. So it's sort of going back and saying, all right, what were the messages and themes of my life, of my childhood life growing up? What did I see in my parents? What were the patterns? How did they approach money? What did they say about money? Did they, were there common mottos? I can say for my own life that when I examine this for myself, it's like
Mhm.
I came from a family who worked really, really, really hard and never got money. So the underlying narrative is, in order for you to even come close to having money, you need to work really hard, and you're probably not going to be around. Well, it's going to be kind of miserable, but there's never enough. There's just never enough, and it doesn't matter how educated you are. There's just never going to really be enough. They didn't explicitly give me that message, but that's what I witnessed. I witnessed that money is stressful. I witnessed that um, people who have money are probably associated with greed,
Mhm.
just from the sort of religious context that I was growing up in. um, I witnessed that money creates stress in a relationship. um, so there are many things that I picked up on that are now inherent in my functioning of the world, and sort of are playing in the background subconsciously about
Right.
my relationship with money. Many other people, if you start to challenge those beliefs and you start to look around for a different way of seeing, you realize, is it true that you have to work really hard in order to try to get money,
Mhm.
and there's never enough? Is that true? No. If I look around the world, I can find plenty of examples for people who don't work very hard and who
Right.
have a lot of money. Is it true that having money makes you greedy? No, that's not true. So there are many beliefs that I can have stored in my body without really realizing that they are beliefs and not actually true. They're not truth. So to begin with, you have to have that reflective process where you start to go back and say, okay, what is actually stored in my body as a that I'm using and walking around the world as a belief system, acting as if that's truth when in fact it's not my truth at all. It doesn't have to be the truth. I've
Right.
just never taken the time to question whether or not that's the way that things are. So that's where you have to start. And then when you're sort of becoming aware of what the storyline is and what the blueprint is, then you can kind of move into the process where you're starting to challenge those beliefs. And for me personally, I love hypnosis for this, but to begin to kind of reprogram things and to begin to design the life, if beginning to feel empowered and like you can actually make a change, and that the life that you're living based off of these internal beliefs doesn't have to be that. You can make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get to the fun part of being able to design it and to sort of say, okay, what would I truly desire? What would my life look like if I didn't actually think that there were these limitations? What would I be creating? What would my soul actually delight in?
Right.
So yeah, but it has to start with that reflective process that can sometimes be really difficult.
I can see that. Um, I think it's because most people don't want to look back. You don't want to see, the flaws in your thinking, um, or not necessarily just your thinking now, but like looking back, it's like how much of what I learned beyond money was not truth, but formed my beliefs.
Hmm.
So it's your experiences are collective, and then you've kind of formed this thing, and it's like now you have to learn how to be all over
Yeah,
again. So I
yeah,
can see how that would be difficult.
yeah. I mean, and also, I mean, if you, depending on where you're coming from or how open you are to the sort of spiritual side of things, there
Mhm.
are much deeper levels as well that you can look on, because your identity isn't, you also are inheriting
Yes.
generational patterns, and even if you want to go woo woo, like past lives, and but sort of the epigenetic stuff, the trauma, the
Yeah.
identity trauma that gets inherited in your cells that you might not even be aware of. So it's that 0 to 7 as the starting point, but also depending on what your history is, what your, I mean,
Mhm.
what your ancestry is, you may also be working from limitations that aren't even from your lifetime, but are from the lifetimes and generations before you. So it's really, really interesting and very deep work, in my opinion.
Yeah. I like the fact that you mentioned that, because I'm actually working on a project now that's all about breaking like generational trauma patterns. And one of them is, about money. And it's like you think like where we are in our lives, we are experiencing our stuff, we're experiencing our mother's stuff, our grandmother's stuff. And some of it we've accepted as just part of who we are, but it's like it has nothing to do with us, whether they were, in the middle of some traumatic experience while pregnant, or the environment around them was hostile, or if they just had a car accident. All those things are ingrained in you, and people don't realize that, so we fight with ourselves trying to move past that thing, and it's not even ours to really know what's there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned that.
And that's kind of where I find the fun part of the subconscious work and doing timeline work. And you have a little bit of creativity, not creativity, but like opportunity to kind of go back into
Hmm.
some of those things. Again, that depends on the person and how willing they are to to go
Right.
into that space. But it's really
Yeah.
very interesting. I mean, it's so fascinating. And the healing work, the impact that you can have if you're going back and dealing with past generational kinds of things and healing those wounds, the impact it can have on your present life and your future is actually pretty profound. So, but you have to be able to look, you have to be
Right.
willing to look in order for those changes to happen, because otherwise it's like, Carl Jung said, until you make this the unconscious conscious, you'll call it fate. And you'll basically be
Exactly.
living your life as if it's being done to you, and not necessarily realizing that you have a lot more say in how things go if you're willing to look at what's not really working.
Exactly. So once you get your clients past their point of understanding, how can they continue to work with you?
I mean, that's a great question. It's sort of like, I think these things come up. For me, a lot of the people that I wind up working with are people who are interested in doing the deep work. And so
Mhm.
I find that there's endless opportunities to kind of self-explore. So once we're making a shift in one place, maybe you're sort of saying, okay, I'm beginning to understand how the money thing is impacting me. Okay, but then let's look at it from the angle of love, or let's look at it from the angle of how it's impacting my business, or my feeling of stuckness in life, or my interest in changing now, as a result, changing the direction of my future, like where I want to be going. So I think it's sort of just in terms of intuitively understanding, and being open to where the conversation needs to go, like what's showing up in your life and what is it that we need to be paying attention to and sort of looking and exploring.
That makes sense. I like that you're able to take that one piece and then kind of spider web it out to help them fix other areas. Like if you think of the life wheel, it's like, okay, we fixed one triangle on this, on this wheel, but then there's all these other sections that need to be fixed. And the fact that you can, give them that foundation and help them explore other ways that they can make it all level 10 on the life wheel. It's just awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, for a lot of people, it winds up, once you get over the fear part, that sort of assumption that somehow I'm going to see something that's too hard for me to see, or that I'm not going to be able to handle. I think
Hmm.
once you dive into it, most often you realize that it's already living inside of you. It's not scarier than what you're already experiencing. It's just that now you have a framework for it. So it can be that initial like fear of getting into it, and realizing, number one, that you can be in a safe space with somebody else who isn't judging you, who's open to just helping and walking through it with you. But I
Hmm.
think a lot of times, once people get past that initial fear, the work then becomes exciting. It becomes, I mean, it's not easy. I don't think. I mean, there's definitely moments where I still feel very raw, and it's like, oh, these things are coming up, these patterns. Oh my gosh, this still exists, and it hurts. But when I realize that I have the resources and I have the people I can go to kind of help reflect it back to me and help me see what it is that I'm not seeing, I find it very enjoyable. And I think a lot of people do. It's like you sort of want to keep looking at the different aspects of your life because it's empowering.
Yes. That's one thing that I found, like, I know it's called shadow work and like there's deep work and all of that stuff, but I find that when you do the shadow work, it brings more light. And when you go deep, it makes the shallow stuff a lot easier to deal with because you're not having all of that turbulence underneath.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so it's just hard if you've never, before you've ever done it, if you've never really entered into that territory, it seems so terrifying, but really it's because you haven't experienced what's on the other side of it.
Exactly.
And the other side of it is actually really fulfilling and exciting, and yeah, like you said, full of light and relief in some ways. Not
Yes.
always exactly immediately, but like
Hmm.
it's, you at least are on the pathway for that.
Exactly. So where can everyone find you?
Yeah. So right now, I'm spending most of my time on Instagram or on Facebook. I have a Facebook group that's called the Collective Spirit Inner Circle, and I really like that. I'm a community oriented person, and I like to have these kinds of conversations with people. So that's a nice place if you're wanting to like interact with me. Of course, I'm offering coaching. You can find me on LinkedIn. Sorry, not LinkedIn. My apologies. On Instagram, you can find my link tree connection, and there's, you can book a call. We can discuss where things are at and how I might be able to be helpful. And then I also have my website, which is kind of a work in progress, but it's stephanieannressler.com. So you can email me at hello@stephanieannressler.com.
Perfect. I will make sure that all of that is in the show notes so that everybody can get in touch with you. I think if you're building a business and you don't have your money mindset right, this is definitely the place to start. So I would suggest that you reach out to Stephanie because it can be easy to make money, but not necessarily keep it if your mind's not right.
Yeah.
Or you can know that you want to make it, but you don't know how and you're blocking yourself. So I would definitely say reach out to Stephanie, find out what you need to find out to make this a business that is sustainable and that can help you make some profit without losing your mind.
Yeah. Well, and again, just to say too that, what's happening in your external reality is often a reflection of what's happening internally. So if you're not finding that you're getting the results that you're looking for, or your bank account isn't reflecting what you want it to,
Mhm.
often that's an indicator that there's something internally that needs to be explored.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's just it's a good indicator that it's not
Right.
happening to you, it's actually happening inside of you.
Right.
And
And for your growth. So
mhm,
just
mhm.
take it as a sign and figure out what's next. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining me, Stephanie. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
This is so much fun.
Yeah, so if you're watching here on Facebook, make sure that you like the Facebook page. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, I will have the notes down underneath this video. I will add the description. And on the show notes, I will have links to all of Stephanie's stuff so that you can get in touch with her if this is where you need help in your business or in your life in general. Again, thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining me.
Thank
Everyone, I
you.
will see you next time.
All right.